Hi everyone, welcome to the BISP Solutions. My name is Abdullah Khan, and today we are going to discuss regarding the various dimension properties in the FCCS. So let's begin. We'll go to the application and select any account. Here I am selecting the revenue domestic account, go to its properties, and there are various member properties that we have to define at the time of creation of any account or any other dimension when we create. So first we'll have to give the name of the account. We can give any description. Here the name is given as 41000. Then we'll have to select what type of alias we want to give to the account. So alias we have selected as default, and the alias name we have given as a revenue domestic. Then account type revenue is a revenue account, so it will come under the account type revenue. So these are understood by the name itself. The expense accounts would come under the expense account type. Assets would be under asset, liability, equity, and saved assumption. This is a different thing from all the general accounts. So saved assumption is something that is required for the statistical purposes and management purposes, and basically the ratio accounts and some other accounts where we'll want to do any calculation, basically custom calculations. So the saved assumption would be used there. I have created one GP data's turnover ratio to this data's turnover ratio account, and which I have given the account type as saved assumption. We'll see that later on in the video. So for revenue, we'll just select revenue. Then there is variance reporting. So there are two types of variance reporting: expense and non-expense. So under the expense reporting, the result is basically given as forecast minus actual, and under the non-expense, the result is given as actual minus forecast. So first of all, we see all this properties live on Smart View, all the properties that we have seen so far, basically saved assumption, variance reporting, and one more property known as two-pass calculation. So I'll come back into the account dimension. Here I've created a ratio under the liquidity ratio by the name of debtors turnover ratio. So this is under the account dimension. I'll go to its properties. See, I have given the account type as saved assumption, and various reporting I have given it as non-expense. So it's not of much importance here since it's a ratio account, but we'll see this in another case. So first, two pass I have checked. So we'll get to see the use of two pass in this account. So we'll go to the smart view and calculate the data's turnover ratio. So data's turnover ratio is basically the formula for the same is turnover by debtors. So here, if we see what is the ratio that it's showing, I have inputted the figures. I'll input some other figures as well for understanding purposes. I'll put the revenue as 3000 and this as 7500. This is short-term receivables. And I'll just click on submit. So see here, if you see the ratio that's showing as 0.4, so that is 40%. If we calculate 3000 divided by 7500, it's 0.4. And we'll have to like give the formula for this thing. So if you see under the properties, and first of all, wherever we give a formula, we'll have to put the data storage as a dynamic calc. We discuss this later on in the video. So member formula I have given here as turnover divided by accounts receivable. So this is the space, the white space we have to put the formula. It's a bit slow. See, this is the way we'll give the formula. We have selected this account revenue domestic and given it under quotes divided by short-term receivables and ended by the semicolon. I'll just come back. So here's how you can create a ratio account and define the formula. Another thing which is very important is the two pass calculation. So basically what happens is that if we check the two pass the way we have checked under the this data turnover ratio, what happens is if we are calculating the ratio for say January, which we have done, and February also. February ratio is also zero point 0.4, so I just change the figures here. Give 7,000, 9,000. So I'll submit the data. It's in free form. I'll have to refresh. So this is 0.777 and this is zero point 0.4. So what happens is that if we select the quarter one, see, this is a different dimension, different member, forecast and variance. Just ignore it for a minute. Just look at the actual figures. So actual for January is 0.4, that is 40%, and actual for February is 0.77, that is 77%. So what happens is if we have checked the two pass, then the ratio for the quarter, see, it's actual and it's quarter. So it should ideally take the total of January and February here, which is 10,000 and 16,500 for short-term receivables, and simply do the calculation on that basis, which is coming as 60%. If we just check 10,000 divided by 16,500, that is 60%, and it's showing correctly. But what happens is I'll just uncheck the two pass in the data turnover and refresh the cube, and then we'll see what happens here. I've unchecked it and we have refreshed the cube. Succeeded. Now I'll just come here and refresh it. See what happens is 1.1777. So it has changed the percentage or the ratio. It has what it has done. It has simply added these two numbers, but which is wrong. See, the actual ratio is 60%, which we have calculated by taking the total of the numbers. But what it's doing here, it's adding the percentage of February and January. We just add it up. So it's showing as 1.77. I'll have to take the figures. What is there? 0.66 and 0.4. 0.666667. Okay, 0.666667 just for the sake of understanding, and zero point 0.4. So if we add it, it's taking as 1 and 1.17. It's an approximation error. So anyhow, it shouldn't take this figure. It's just simply adding up the two ratios, which is wrong. But it should ideally uh, divide this revenue from the short-term receivables in totality in numerical figure, and not in terms of the, like, it should not add its ratios. So for the ratios, the two pass calculation is of utmost importance. So that's the use of two pass. Okay. Now, next we are going to see the variance type, which we saw there. So I have created a member under the scenario named by a variance, and I have taken the actual and the forecast for the month of January. So you can see I have taken it for revenue, which is a non-expense account. Okay. And this labor cost, which is an expense account. So what it does is under January actual and forecast, it is simply subtracting the actual from the forecast. It is a non-expense account, and its property is that it subtracts actual, it subtracts forecast from the actual figure that we have input for the month. And under the expense account, which is the labor burden cost expense account, I have taken it as 2000 and 1000. So what is it does? It subtracts forecast, it subtracts actual from the forecast. So it gives the opposite result if an account is an expense type account. So that variance type option that we saw under the account dimension revenue, this is the use for that variance type. See, variance reporting, it is a non-expense account. So what a non-expense account does is that it gives the result in actual minus forecast, and what an expense account does, it does that it gives the figure as forecast minus actual data. So that's the only use for this variance reporting. Then we have the time balance property. This is flow for the P&L accounts and balance for the balance sheet accounts. Rest are useful in the PVCS application, all the rest of the properties. Exchange rate type, this also is overridden by the data forms and the backend of the FCCS. So we'll just give no rate here, and the backend of the FCCS takes care of this thing. Our source cube is console. So we have covered till here. Then there is data storage. So we'll be seeing this in detail. To pass calculation, we have done allow upper level entity input. If we check like upper level entity is the C level. So in case I check this upper level entity input and click on save in my revenue domestic account. So what happens is C601 is my child. C600. I'll just simply open a dimension for my C level and refresh the queue. See, what happens is that it is giving me an option to input the data at C level, although it does not give the option to input the data at C level in case I uncheck that allow upper level entity input option. So this is the only use for this thing. Okay, then there is console plan type. So we'll be seeing this in detail. Then data type is fairly simple. Currency for amount, as we'll have to input the data under that. And we'll have to mostly input the data under account only. So it would be under currency. And for the ratios, the GP ratio that I have created, sorry, the data turnover ratio that I have created, I have taken the data type as percentage. So, and the rest will be needed as per the requirements. Then dynamic children would be the children of this account. So we can, if we check this, we can change the number of possible dynamic children. If we don't check it, then it's the maximum possible children that it can have is 10. Now the remaining two properties that we have to see is data storage, and one more property is this plan type console. So for this, I have created a GP account for simple understanding of the same. And under GP, first we'll see the properties of GP. So GP I have created as an equity account. It's a non-expense flow, no rate type. I have first we'll see its calculation under the dynamic calculation storage property. Then we'll see it under different heads as well. And plan type I've taken as addition, data type as currency. Here also we'll have to just check whether the data storage property is coming the same as is here. Just save the same. For sales account, all of it is similar, just that the data storage property here I have taken a store, console as addition. Same. For COGS, that is cost of goods sold, I have taken the all of it is like it's an expense account, so I've taken the account type as expense. And the only main difference here is not for never share, we can take it as store as well. The main difference here is I have taken the console as subtraction. So what it will do that it will when it will be rolling up the amount to the parent, it will be adding this amount and it will be subtracting the amount of COGS, that is cost of goods sold. See, I've already input the data here as 4,000 and 2,000, and it's taking as 2,000 in the GP. I'll just do it again. I'll take 50,000 here and 20,000 here and just submit the data. So it should take 30,000 as the difference amount under the GP. See, so that's the use of the plan type as subtraction. Under for the COGS, I've taken as subtraction, and for sales, I've taken as addition. So that's the use. In case I would have taken it as addition under the COGS, which we just change and do it as well. In case I would have taken it as addition, just refresh the cube again. Succeeded. Refresh the smart view and it will take as 70,000. That's it. That means it will add the COGS that it was subtracting earlier. Okay, so now the last important property that remains is the data storage property. So to understand that, we have seen the storage under the dynamic calculation for the parent. So what it does in the dynamic calculation, it rolls all the data, adding or subtracting the same and rolling it up to the parent. It is required for all the calculations. So basically it does all the calculations. Dynamic calc and store, the only difference between both of them is that if we select the parent as dynamic calc and store, it will store the calculations that we have done right now, and it won't be required to calculate again whenever we reopen the data or do any calculations. But but if we are selecting dynamic calc, it will calculate the data or the numbers each and every time when we refresh the application or we open the application. So that's the only difference between those two. And then we'll go to the other data storage properties. So we have seen dynamic calc and store. Now I'm going to show you the property label only. So we'll just save it. Okay, I forgot to check whether under the UDA also it has to be same. Sorry. Label only. Okay. Okay, it's fine. So I've given the property as data storage property as label only. Here for sales it's store, and for COGS it's never share. And I'll just refresh the cube again. So we'll have to refresh the cube each and every time when we do any changes in the properties or in the metadata for smooth functioning of our application and calculation of the proper results that we need. See, before us giving the label, this is the data that we are seeing here. So this is the data we are seeing under the option of, say, dynamic calc as parent. Okay. Now I'll just refresh. And what it does is that it basically calculates, ignores this 20,000 and calculates only 50,000 as its it takes the value of 50,000 only. It takes the value of 50,000, that is sales one, and rolls it up to the parent. So label in under label only, what happens is that it just simply calculates. It doesn't calculate anything. It just rolls up the value of the child to the parent and only the value of the immediate and one child. So the immediate child is sales one, and it's rolling up the same value to the parent, and it's ignoring this COGS of 20,000. Okay. It's just rolling up the value of 50,000, which is its immediate child, and ignoring COGS. That's the output that we get under label only. And we can only give label only to the parent level. We cannot give it under the child level. If we give, then the application throws up an error. Now we are going to see if we give the property of the parent as store. Just a sec. Under the member formula also we'll have to put store. That's why it was giving that error. And we'll just refresh the same. We'll check the output as we have given store here. See, under the top level, if we have given the property as store and we have two child, then what it does is that it does not give any output at the parent level, since we have two child and the property here is store. But let me just change the property of COGS to ignore. So it will ignore the same in its calculation and check the result as to what result does the store data storage type at the parent level gives back to me. So now the sales would be added, and this is ignore. Okay, so we from this we must understand that the parent is having only one child for now. This is under the ignore property at console level. So we'll just refresh it again. See, what it does is that it is ignoring this 20,000 since I have put the property as ignore, and although it is stored at the parent level at GP, it is taking up the value of its child. This is called as implicit sharing. What it is doing is that it is implied that it's only one child, so it is rolling it up to the parent and taking the value as 50,000. This concept is known as implicit sharing, and with this we can understand that in case we put store at the top level and we have only one child, then the value will not be hash missing or zero at the parent level. It would take the value of its immediate and the only child, and it is called as implicit sharing. Now the last one is never share. So we'll change the data storage type to never share in both the places, and we'll just save it, refresh the queue. Now also we have ignored the cogs in the console level, and just we'll see what the result this never share property gives back to us at the parent level. We'll go back to the smart queue and just refresh the cube. See, what happens is that it is showing me hash missing, that is nil. So for what it does is that under never share, if we select the data storage type as never share for the parent, it does not roll up its child value, although it has only one child for now because cogs is ignored by me under the properties. So it is implied that it has only one child, and it should ideally, if we go by the concept of implied sharing or implicit sharing, the sales one amount of 50,000 should come up to the or roll up to the GP. But since we have put the property at the parent level as never share, it's not rolling up the same. So this is what is the never share property for the account dimension. So with this, I think we have completed all of the properties and saw what result it gives at the parent level. And we have seen two paths. We have seen the variance reporting account type as saved assumption. I've also created one account. Uh, yeah, so fairly we have mostly we have covered all the properties for the application. So that's it for today. In case of any queries, you can visit our website. Uh, Thanks to you all and have a great day ahead. Thank you.